I know I teased that my next review was going to be of another adult British comedy, but researching and writing that shit has been torture. So I thought I'd make a quick video about a game and a film which have helped me cope with the agony. The game is Don't Nod Entertainment's Life is Strange, an episodic graphic adventure from 2015. I'd been aware of it for some time, but thanks to the recent release of its prequel, Before the Storm, and a recommendation from Alan Heath of the Taste My Game Face podcast, I finally downloaded it. It is now one of my favourite games of all time, and I'm not alone in my enthusiasm. Life's fanbase is very devoted and passionate, and the developers have been very supportive of fan-created content related to it, of which Carson T. Morrissey's What If is arguably the most significant. This movie follows the basic plot of Life is Strange. High school senior Max Caulfield returns to her hometown of Arcadia Bay to study photography at the prestigious Blackwell Academy. After witnessing a murder, she's drawn into a branching mystery involving kidnapping, drug deals, bullying, corruption, eco-disaster and, naturally, her sudden ability to reverse time and alter past events. Max's inexplicable power forms the core gameplay mechanic of Life is Strange, though it's far from the only thing which makes it such a rewarding experience. The game has racked up numerous awards, including a well-deserved gaming BAFTA for Best Story. And it has one of the most affecting and compelling narratives I've encountered in any medium, so Morrissey really had a lot to live up to here. Essentially, What If represents a single playthrough of the game. Now, there are limitations to Max's power. She can replay conversations and actions, but ultimately, once a decision is made, the results can be wild. What If hits many of the game's key plot points, and by extension, many of the cemented consequences that players will recognise. Obviously, adaptations of pre-existing IPs have been around forever, but there are challenges unique to fan films which What If has prompted me to consider. Films like this are made by fans for fans, relying on goodwill and community support, but also with a greater emphasis on honouring the source material. This goes beyond how we normally consider adaptations, which typically benefit from studio backing and investment, and the greater promise of returns from newcomers as well as the faithful. What If needed to distill elements of Life is Strange into a single cohesive story. Time travel narratives make this tricky at the best of times, but there's also a tonal element that Morrissey needed to nail, and he has. But what's encouraging is that Morrissey recognised that What If couldn't be satisfying in its own right if it was entirely in thrall to Life is Strange. Simply copying and cramming segments from the game into 2 hours wouldn't cut it, so certain scenes had to be dropped or altered and new ones added. The starkest changes come from the cast. Some of the most important characters from the game are either scaled down enormously or completely absent. Despite the unique gameplay mechanics, the reason I've fallen so hard for Life is Strange is due to characterisation and performance, and I was so happy that What If lived up to the high bar the game had set. Both game and film land heavy emotional blows, and as both rely heavily on dialogue and character interaction, What If needed strong performances, which it has. And what's amazing is that the majority of the cast have no other credits to their names. Despite looking a lot less scrawny than her in-game counterpart, Shelby Davis beautifully carries off Max's vulnerable, shy yet kind-hearted and determined nature. Skylar Ferguson is every bit the entitled and psychotic bastard that antagonist Nathan Prescott needed to be, while Abigail Van Patten was perfect as the tormented Kate Marsh, who was in many ways my favourite part of the game. And then we come to Chloe Price. Chloe is the most iconic figure from the game, and while Shelby Davis does a great rendition of Max, Mads Hoofnagel is Chloe. It goes beyond her mannerisms and her voice. She crackles with the same wild energy and confidence while mining the same vein of inner rage and abandonment issues that Ashley Birch did so epically in the game. Side note, Birch was also Aloy in another of my favourite games of all time. It would be dishonest of me if I didn't comment on some of What If's glaring faults. Despite the overall quality of the writing and direction, the pacing flags conspicuously around the halfway mark. Certain scenes needed a lot more refinement, and the inclusion of Frank served as little more than a rushed exposition dump. Also, and I will admit that this is very, very petty, the few fleeting special effects shots look awful. This is obviously down to budget, but it does impact greatly on the immersion. But on the flip side, the film's cinematography is superb, and the overall quality of editing is great, especially when it comes to the time reversal transitions. These moments really show how simple yet well-conceived editing can overcome a lack of resources. Life is Strange is an incredibly atmospheric and engaging soundtrack from acts like Jose Gonzalez, Mogwai, Sid Matters, Amanda Palmer and Alt J. In keeping with the collaborative nature of audience-created content, a collection of equally effective music from barely known acts really add to the experience of What If. And it shows another awesome aspect of projects like this, celebrating and sharing the works of artists that most people would likely never encounter. Now, my appreciation of What If is somewhat coloured by my love for Life is Strange, so I am curious as to what those of you might only come to the film think of it. But regardless, I definitely recommend What If to both fans of the game and the uninitiated. Morrissey and company show great potential as filmmakers, and movies like this are why I feel so passionately about talking about projects from the outer limits of popular culture. And the team's also entering production on an adaptation of Before the Storm, so please check out the links in the description.
Thanks for taking the heat.